Welcome back to the Course Creation Incubator. I'm Gina Onativia, online course coach and consultant, here to get you fired up about creating your first course. Today, I'm chatting you up about one of my favorite topics, outlining your course, specifically how to organize it and make sure that your student is fired up to win. One of the questions I'm going to be answering today is, what do you do when you have so much content that you want to share? How do you make sure it feels organized, that it flows, and ultimately leads to success for your students? I'm going to walk you through 3 questions I get a lot from course creators who are putting together their content for the first time. I'm so excited because I feel like a structure when it comes to your course outline is key. And there's a few reasons for this. Number 1, it sets you up for success, like I've mentioned. It's the foundation of what you're creating for every other phase of your course. Number 2, your content structure is so important because you'll have to troubleshoot along the way with your course development. You're going to come back to that structure again and again. Challenges will come up and try to derail you, and your framework will be that constant that you can come back to help ground you. Another reason why structure is so important is that it helps you build momentum. Once you get that content structure down, you can feel really solid about what you're doing for the rest of the course and feel like you're on the right path to creating a best-selling online course. And then the fourth and last reason why I think your content structure is so critical, it helps you talk about how you're going to market your course. You may be thinking, Gina, why are we talking about content today? I really want to drill down on my market or how I'm going to promote the course. That's what's important. But I'm telling you, when I talk to course creators that get stuck, 90% of the time, it's because their outline is flawed. They're stuck. They don't know where to go. If you can't get your content down and organize it in a way, then you're not going to be set up for success with your course. And you're certainly not going to be set up for success with your marketing and getting your first students through the door. That's why I'm really going to emphasize getting your content organized to a place where you feel great about it. You feel confident that you can market your course to any potential student. By the way, I was warming up to Panic at the Disco when I was scripting this and rehearsing this podcast. Anytime I sit down to record, I get in state. That's a little something I learned from working for Tony Robbins for years and years. That Dancing's Not a Crime song, it gets me going every time. So I want to make sure before you sit down to work on your course outline, you've got your in-state song. All right, time for the 3 questions that I get all the time when it comes to putting together your course content. Let's start with the first one, the simple one. Where do I start? So a lot of times new course creators come up to me and say, I've got a great idea. I validated it. I know I have a market that will pay. Now, how do I put that together to help transform someone, a new student? And this is where my Post-it exercise comes into play. With the Post-it exercise, it really helps you get the structure of your course out of your head and into Post-its and ultimately into a Google Doc. So the most important part to start with the Post-it exercise and with any course outline is your promise and what you're ultimately going to deliver for your students. And you want to make sure that this promise isn't too broad or what I like to call extra. Because a lot of times you can get stuck with too broad of a promise. You might be promising the world, and that's really tough to deliver. That's going to frustrate you when you're scripting down the line and you realize that you've promised way too much. I'm going to give you 2 examples of promises and how we kind of work them out to drill down on them. Now remember, you're going to your corner, you're embracing your smallest viable market. And the promise goes along with that. You want to be just as niched with your promise as you are with your market. I've talked about Susie Menkes over the last couple of episodes. She's the newborn sleep expert. And by the way, she has a parenting boot camp now as well. When we were developing her promise, it wasn't, I'm going to help your newborn get 8 hours of sleep and sleep through the night. Now, what's wrong with that promise? Well, if you've had a newborn in your home, you know it's practically impossible to get a 3-week-old to sleep through the night. Instead, Susie's promise is, I'm going to get overwhelmed newborn parents feeling more peaceful, less overwhelmed, and more confident with a healthy bedtime routine. This is a promise that Susie can deliver on. I've seen her do it. She's amazing with getting little ones to not sleep through the night, but definitely set up a healthy routine. She was telling me once that she had her daughter sleeping through the night at 10 weeks. Now, I have Tristan, who is now 6, sleeping through the night at 10 months. So if she could promise I'll have your newborn sleeping through the night in 3 months, but she doesn't have to do that. She just has to take newborn parents on a journey from feeling overwhelmed, lost, exhausted, to feeling more confident, more peaceful, less overwhelmed. She's taking them on a journey from feeling awful to feeling confident and feeling better. And by the way, I wish I knew Susie when Tristan was just a baby, because that completely would have transformed my newborn experience. So that's what's important with your promise. You cannot overpromise. You can't go too broad with your structure, because this will lead ultimately to trouble with scripting your content. When your promise is too broad, you may have challenges with fulfilling on it. Here's another example of going too broad versus a nice niched promise. One of my Done For You clients, William, had a course about getting people hired over 40, which is pretty relevant right now. In fact, one of our close friends got furloughed today for the next 90 days. And I'm sure you might be hearing more and more about your friends or colleagues getting furloughed, people getting laid off, losing clients. Well, William teaches you how to get back into the workforce. Now, he doesn't say, I'm going to get you hired in 6 weeks. That's not his promise because he can't promise that. It's not only about going too broad, it's about over-promising things that you cannot deliver. Can William get some folks hired in 6 weeks? Absolutely. Is that a tall order to promise every single person who takes his course? Definitely. So instead, Williams promises, I'm going to show you how to present your value in the marketplace to get hired for the right role. Now that sounds like something that's achievable, that I could buy into, a result that he can deliver that would help his students feel confident, get out there and get hired. By the way, I would love to see William pivot here, talk about how you can get hired or stay relevant while people are getting furloughed, laid off. So if you feel like your promise is too big, niche it down, drill down, dial it back. Just like you're finding your corner or your swimming pool, you're going to find a niche down promise that you can deliver on. Second question I get about course outlines. I have too much to teach, Gina. What do I do? This happens a lot. A lot of times out of the gate, I get course creators who want to create what I call a signature course. With a signature course, it's robust. It's kind of like your life's work that you're delivering for people. I remember I was looking at one outline. This was a course for physical therapists hoping to pass their exams. And I remember looking at this outline and thinking, I'm overwhelmed by this outline. And let me give you a hint. If I'm overwhelmed by it, your students are completely going to be overwhelmed by your course. That's why you need to go back to your promise and figure it out. What's the promise? What's the steps? And that's it. No extra fluff, no extra course steps. I call it course fat. I want you to cut the fat out because you're going to confuse your students. For example, Susie, our newborn sleep expert, could have talked about postpartum depression. She could talk about taking care of toddlers. There's a whole genre for kids and sleep, but that's not her niche. Her niche is newborn sleep. She wants to stay with her corner and create raving fans in that. So she knows for now, I'm not going to go beyond that in this course. Now, Susie built that course a couple of years ago, and since then, she's expanded into parenting content for younger kids, so kids up to the age of 7. She started out in the newborn niche, and now she's expanded from there. So that's a great opportunity for her to grow. The point is here, I don't want you to overwhelm your student. If you're looking at your outline and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling like it's too much, it likely is too much. And think about where you can cut back. You want something manageable to work with. Now, I don't want to squash your dreams here. I don't want you to feel like, hey, I can't use my content because Gina says it's too much. What I am is a pragmatist, and I want to make sure you can get across the finish line and deliver a promise in a certain amount of time and not completely overwhelm your student. All right, let's move on to the third question I always get. Gina, it's all in my head. How do I get it out of my head and into something I can use? Well, I'm a fan of organized dumping. So I know some of you say, hey, I got that idea. I'm just going to dump it and just throw it up all over the place. Well, get that information organized first, then brain dump. I'm not a fan of brain dumping just for brain dumping. I'm a fan of organizing it. So what does that mean? That means starting with your promise, figuring that out, what your transformation is, then the overarching steps. This is part of the Post-it exercise. Then I will allow you to brain dump. I will give you permission. You can unleash with your content and get it all out there. All I ask is that once you unleash, that you've got your buckets already in place to help you organize your content. Because I don't want you feeling overwhelmed. Because what happens if you brain dump without organization is you feel overwhelmed, you feel lost. So you're going to have a little discipline in this area, in the organization to get you across the finish line. So if you feel like everything's in your head, figure out the transformation first and the steps, and organize what content you have going around in your head that you can put into Google Docs. I'm a big fan of Google Docs. You can also organize in Trello, or whatever system works for you is a great system. By the way, I want to put a note in here about being a perfectionist with your outline. Sometimes I get course creators who look at their outline, this is a little bit down the road, and say, oh, I don't want to include this bonus or this module. And I ask you, if that comes up, do you not want to include it because you don't like it or because you don't think it will serve your students? If you feel like it won't serve your students, then I'm all for it. If you feel like you're being a perfectionist, then I want you to think about it. When you're brain dumping and you're doing your outline and you're organizing your content, give yourself a timeline. I've got 2 days to check this out, and then I've got to let it go. I've got to move forward and take action on it. Because here's what happens. You say you're going to give it a week. It becomes 3 weeks. Then eventually I ask you about it, and you say, well, I've been thinking about that outline and I wanted to do it over. And you want to completely redo it. It's like a breakup, right? Well, at a certain point, you need to put a stake in the ground and say, this is the outline, this is the structure that I have chosen. I can make minor edits to it, but I'm not going to completely throw it away and throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? You're going to work with the framework you have as your minimum viable course and get it done. You're not going to let the perfect framework hold you back, because guess what? Just like there's no such thing as a perfect course, there's no such thing as a perfect framework. So it will not be exactly what your students need, but it will be a heck of a start. And that's what we want to focus on. Focus on the minimum viable product. So I want you to think about these 3 principles when you're developing your course outline. I want you to think about your niche down promise. What is a really great honed in promise that you can deliver on? I want you to think about cutting the fat and really just delivering the content that your student needs. And then finally, I want you to move forward and get that content out of your head and into something you could use like a Google Doc and not second guess yourself. By the way, if you want more help with organizing your course, I've got an awesome new game plan download that you can check out to help you create a best-selling course. You can go to coursecreationboutique.com/game plan to check that out. The next episode, I'm going to talk about how to maximize your revenue as a course creator. So critical when you are creating first course. We're going to think about the end game. We're going to think about how you want to set up your business for success. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one course creation piece. Until then, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.